My observation is that there are very few awakened beings, but even fewer awake women. Is it harder for women to wake up?
Yes, because women are responsible for children. There are more awake males than there are females currently. But when children are involved, they need a level of totality. They need to be taken care of. They can't just be ignored for spiritual practices. And women tend to take care of children more than men do. They tend to be the primary carer more than males. And so males have more time for spiritual practices or reality practices. It is more difficult for women. So generally speaking, around the world at the moment, there are less awake women than there are awake men. But not because women are not capable of waking up. They're very capable of waking up. Matter of fact, they're probably better at surrender. But women tend to have the duties of taking care of children, so it's more difficult for them.
Many old scriptures suggest that women can't wake up. Why do they promote this when it's such a seemingly obvious limiting belief?
There's always been a little bit of prejudice against women, and I think it's unrealistic. There's been this belief in countries where enlightenment has occurred that women are not as equal as men, that somehow they're inferior, and that is certainly not the case. Women tend to be stronger than men because women have to bear children. And so there's been an unfairness regarding this particular attitude for thousands of years. Women are very capable of enlightenment. They're very capable of anything, actually.
Before you said you think women are possibly better at surrender than men. Why do you see that?
Well, women suffer more pain than men, generally speaking, as a result of womanly issues, childbirth. Men don't have to go through childbirth. They don't, I find it very funny when you get a couple who are having a child and they say, we're pregnant. No, the woman is pregnant and she is going to suffer the pain of childbirth, not you, bloke. It's ridiculous. I've been at 3 childbirths, 3 of my children, and it is a very, very painful affair for the woman, very painful. And I don't know if many blokes could go through it. I think women are pretty tough. They're pretty strong. They're pretty capable of anything.
Is there anything that female seekers in particular can do to wake up?
Well, it's the same deal with whoever wakes up. It's an unconditional surrender to truth or God or beingness, whatever you want to call it. And unconditional surrender, being a non-doing, is very difficult for the mind to grasp because the ego says, well, how can I do that? Well, you can't. It's actually an absence of you. A surrendered mind has an absence of you in it. A surrendered mind has an absence of thought. And it is unconditional surrender that enlightenment occurs. But we're not programmed for surrender. We're programmed to resist and struggle to survive until we die. But because we're intelligent, we can learn to surrender by practicing acceptance, by practicing let go, by practicing openness. We can learn. You can't really teach animals that, but human beings are intelligent enough to do it for themselves. But it does go against nature for someone to raise their consciousness levels and wake up, because basically they're defeating the survival mechanism. They're learning to conquer it. Unconditional surrender is totally against survival. And so someone who has mastered unconditional surrender has actually mastered their own mind. And now they have a mind that is equanimous, a mind that can take fire without contracting and give fire without contracting. This sort of mind supports enlightenment.
Given that regardless if you're a man or a woman, it's about unconditional surrender, is a woman's mind different from a man's mind when it comes to what they have to surrender?
No. Surrender is surrender. For me, I started practicing acceptance of life as it is when I realized that any time that we offer resistance to anything, we create suffering in ourselves. And I simply wasn't interested in creating suffering inside myself. It was bad enough the world wanted me to suffer without me helping. And so in examining the mind, through witnessing the mind, I got to see that every time I contracted or went into resistance over anything, I was creating suffering for myself. And I just decided not to do that anymore. And now I practiced that for years and I failed probably thousands of times. But eventually I got it down. Eventually I stopped contracting and resisting against life. Eventually I accepted life as it is. And then life became very peaceful. People who take offense are hurting themselves. You take offense to anything, you've gone into resistance. You're hurting yourself. It's not someone else that's hurting you. It's not something else that's hurting you. It's you. You're hurting you because you're the one that's responsible for your reaction. And we create our own reality by the way we think.